You want to keep working, right? That's what Keanu Reeves says he was told, whispered coldly over the phone, years ago, after a moment on set that changed everything. He was younger then, less guarded, more trusting. But that day, under hot lights and Hollywood cameras, something happened. Something dark. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. And now, all these years later, he's ready to talk. But why now? Why this week? Because Rob Reiner is dead. And Keanu? He's finally breaking his silence. Let's rewind. A shocking crime that stunned Hollywood. On a quiet Sunday morning in December, the kind of morning where the industry naps beneath palm trees and brunch menus, a horrific scene unfolded inside one of Brentwood's most exclusive estates. Rob Reiner, age 78, the same Rob Reiner who gave us A Few Good Men, Stand By Me, The Princess Bride, was found brutally stabbed to death, along with his wife, Michelle Singer. Their $13.5 million mansion, once a symbol of Hollywood longevity, was now a crime scene. And it wasn't a break-in. It wasn't random. Police say the killer was someone inside the house. Their son, Nick Reiner, 32, troubled, in and out of rehab, the black sheep of the family, was arrested the same night. But according to reports, it wasn't the police who discovered the bodies. It was Romy Reiner, their 27-year-old daughter. And when she called 911, she allegedly said something that is now burning across every studio executive's desk in Hollywood. There's someone in this house who should be a suspect. And just like that, everything shifted. Because Romy wasn't just identifying a killer. She was pointing a finger at something deeper. Something older. Something that Keanu Reeves says he's kept buried until now. The man behind the curtain. Let's talk about Rob Reiner. The lovable meathead from All in the Family. The man who morphed from sitcom fame to Oscar-nominated director. Hollywood royalty. Connected. Respected. A man who could pick up a phone and greenlight a movie, or shut one down. But here's the thing. Every powerful man in Hollywood has two faces. One for the camera, and one in the shadows. And according to Keanu, Reiner's shadow stretched further than anyone dared to imagine. Keanu Reeves. The unlikely whistleblower. You know Keanu. He's the introvert who became an icon. The man who rode a bus in Speed, surfed with Swayze in Point Break, saved the Matrix as Neo, and became cinema's favorite assassin in John Wick. He's quiet, gracious, practically allergic to drama. But beneath that calm exterior is a man who's seen things, heard things, and one thing, in particular, has haunted him. It happened on a set. Years ago. He won't say the movie's name. Not yet. Maybe he legally can't. But something happened. Something involving Reiner. Something involving someone vulnerable, and someone powerful looking the other way. And Keanu? He saw it. He says he heard it. And when he tried to speak up, he got the call. You want to keep working, right? The culture of fear in Hollywood. What happens when a rising star says too much? Nothing. Nothing you see anyway. But suddenly, that actor doesn't get invited to casting dinners. Scripts that were being written for them go mysteriously cold. Talk show slots vanish. And one word starts floating around behind closed doors. Difficult. Keanu didn't want to be labeled. Not back then. Not when he was building something that took years to shape. But staying quiet came at a cost. You know what he said in a recent private audio clip? It ate at me. Every year that went by, it just got heavier. Like a weight I couldn't put down. And now, with Reiner dead, that weight is shifting. The timeline they don't want you to see. Here's where it gets weird. Reiner is killed on December 14th. Nick Reiner is arrested. But the next day, Keanu goes dark. No press. No appearances. His team cancels a small, intimate Q&A panel without explanation. Then, 3 days later, an anonymous Twitter account posts this. If you knew what Keanu knew, you wouldn't sleep either. It's deleted within hours. But that's not all. Whispers begin to circulate that Keanu is in possession of something. A diary, a voice recording, or even a signed agreement that ties Reiner to the event he tried to cover up. Could that be why someone tried to silence him? Could that be why he stayed quiet for so long? And now, could Reiner's death be the moment Keanu finally says, no more? The confession he never wanted to make. Sources say Keanu has privately recorded his entire recollection of what happened. The set, the incident, the call, and Reiner's alleged threats. He's considering releasing it. But there's fear. Not just for his career, for his safety. You don't go up against the Hollywood old guard without consequences. Ask anyone who tried. But here's the thing. Keanu isn't trying to burn down Hollywood. He's trying to tell the truth. For the people who were there. For the ones who were silenced. And maybe for himself. Why this matters now? You might be asking, why should we care? Because what Keanu's saying, it isn't just about Rob Reiner. It's about what's still happening. The secrets that still sit behind studio gates. The fear that keeps actors, assistants, PAs, editors, everyone quiet. It's about the power of one man trying to hold another accountable and being told to shut up or disappear. And when someone like Keanu Reeves says he was threatened, you listen. Because if he wasn't safe, who is? The silence is breaking. In the past 2 weeks, we've seen a flurry of strange activity. Lawyers circling around Keanu's reps. Legal documents being quietly sealed in LA courtrooms. A new documentary project rumored to be scrapped just days before production. Coincidence? Or is something bigger moving in the shadows? One thing's for sure. Keanu's emotional confession is just the beginning. Because what he's about to reveal next could flip the entire narrative. Cliffhanger ending for the introduction. You've heard the rumors. You've seen the headlines. But what really happened between Keanu Reeves and Rob Reiner? What was so dark, so damaging, that a Hollywood legend allegedly threatened one of its most beloved actors? And why is Keanu ready to finally expose it, now that Reiner is gone? Stay with us, because what comes next will shake the foundation of everything you thought you knew about Hollywood. What really happened the night Rob Reiner was murdered? Was it just a family tragedy? Or the final act of a decades-long cover-up unraveling in real time? And most disturbingly, why did Keanu Reeves go completely silent the moment the news broke? Let's pull the curtain back. Brentwood, where secrets sleep behind mansions. Brentwood, Los Angeles. A zip code where money buys privacy. Where the trees are too tall, the hedges too thick, and the neighbors too scared to ask questions. It's not a neighborhood. It's a fortress. Rob Reiner's estate stood at the top of a gently sloped cul-de-sac. $13.5 million. Gated. Guarded. A symbol of everything Hollywood old money could buy. Until Sunday, December 14th. That morning, 911 dispatchers received a call. A woman. Panicked. Crying. Breathing heavy. There's blood everywhere. They're not breathing. My parents, they're gone. That voice. Romy Reiner. Age, 27. Rob and Michelle's only daughter. The operators tried to calm her, but it was too late. By the time first responders arrived, the scene was brutal. Both bodies were found in the master bedroom. Multiple stab wounds. Blood on the walls, the bedding, the hardwood floor. No signs of forced entry. No valuables missing. Just violence. Personal. Intentional. A house divided. Now here's where things take a sharp left. Because Romy didn't just say her parents were dead. She didn't scream for help or beg someone to catch a fleeing intruder. No, she said something very specific. There's someone in this house who should be a suspect. Read that again. Not someone broke in. Not someone came. But someone in this house. And who else was in the house? Nick Reiner. Age 32. The Reiner's only son. Living in the guest house. Less than 80 feet away from where the murders occurred. He told police he heard nothing unusual. He said he was asleep. And yet, according to LAPD sources, there was no sign of forced entry, no open doors, no security camera breach. So if someone entered that house, they either had keys, or they never left. Nick Reiner, the forgotten son. Nick Reiner has always been a mystery. You won't see his face on red carpets. No movie roles. No producing credits. But dig a little deeper, and a very different picture starts to form. He's been in and out of rehab since his teens. Struggled with substance abuse. Known to disappear for weeks at a time. Multiple arrests. DUIs, disorderly conduct, a public disturbance at a producer's party in Malibu in 2022. But his last name? It protected him. Until now. Because this time, the cops didn't back down. That night, just 6 hours after the bodies were found, LAPD officers placed Nick in handcuffs. 2 counts of first-degree murder. No bail. No comment. Just the chilling mugshot of a man whose eyes looked completely blank. But here's the twist. Even as news outlets scrambled to cover the shocking crime, a strange silence fell across Hollywood. No statements from Rob's longtime collaborators. No tweets from major actors. No memorials. No vigils. Just one quiet post from Ron Howard. My heart is heavy, but some things can't be said right now. And then, Keanu Reeves, who had remained completely off the grid for the holidays, was spotted by a TMZ photographer at a private hangar in Burbank. He looked pale, distant, sunglasses on at night. When asked about Reiner's death, he didn't respond. He simply walked up the stairs into the jet and vanished. The phone call that reignited everything. 3 days later, an unnamed industry insider leaked a single detail to the Hollywood Monitor, a site known for deep dive exposes and insider dirt. According to this source, Keanu Reeves had received a call the night before the murders from Rob Reiner. And what she said, "You were right. He's dangerous. Be careful." What does that even mean? Was she talking about Nick? Was she talking about her father? Or was she referring to the weight of something even darker, the long shadow of a cover-up too big to control? The article was online for just 42 minutes before it was pulled. No explanation, just a 404 error. But screenshots survive. And fans, well, fans don't forget Keanu's connection to the Reiners. Let's clear something up. Keanu Reeves has never worked with Rob Reiner in an official, credited capacity. Not on paper, not in studio press kits. But multiple insiders claim that's not the whole story. Back in the early 90s, before Speed, before The Matrix, Keanu had done screen tests and auditions under Reiner's Castle Rock umbrella. He was on the fringes of Reiner's influence, invited to private producer brunches, weekend script readings, and industry mixers. It was during one of those unofficial productions, an indie-style film that was allegedly later shelved, where the incident happened, where Keanu saw something, and Reiner allegedly said to him, "This doesn't leave this set. You understand me?" Those exact words, according to someone very close to Keanu, were never forgotten. And now, with Reiner's murder, the past is coming back with a vengeance. The Reiner estate, a house full of secrets. Back to the Brentwood mansion. Police secured the entire property within hours. But according to leaked dispatch logs, something inside the house delayed the investigation. A hidden panic room. A private vault inside Rob Reiner's office. It took locksmiths 5 hours to crack it open. And what did they find? We don't know, because it's all sealed under a gag order. But 2 days later, Reiner's longtime lawyer, Stuart Hallberg, filed for emergency protective orders for multiple legacy documents. Legacy documents. Why would a man murdered in his own bed have documents that needed urgent legal shielding? And why did LAPD officers request backup from the Cybercrimes Division? What were they looking at? What were they afraid of? Back to Keanu, silence and surveillance. While the Reiner story dominated headlines, something strange was happening in Keanu's world. Security was doubled at his Hollywood Hills home. His publicist went dark. A scheduled appearance at a virtual charity event was canceled. No reason given. And fans noticed something even weirder. Keanu's Reddit AMA from years ago, a popular post full of lighthearted answers and fan praise, suddenly vanished. Completely deleted. No archive. No trace. Why scrub something so innocent? Unless it wasn't. Unless there were answers hidden in plain sight. A fan who saved screenshots posted this. He said something weird about Rob. A joke, maybe. Something about directors who smile with their teeth but threaten with their eyes. Was it a metaphor? Or a memory? The final public sightings before it all changed. Rob Reiner was seen in public just days before his death. At a charity gala in Westwood. Smiling, toasting, laughing, and sitting just 2 tables away, Keanu Reeves. The only photo that survived shows the 2 men barely looking at each other. But a witness said this. Keanu looked tense. He wasn't mingling. He left early, right after Reiner made a speech. What was said during that speech? No transcript was released. But according to the event planner, Reiner made a strange off-the-cuff joke. This town's all about memories. And lucky for me, mine are protected in a vault. Laughter, applause, and maybe a warning? Mini cliffhanger ending. So let's recap. Rob Reiner is dead. Nick Reiner is behind bars. Rob Reiner whispered a warning to Keanu just hours before the murders. And Keanu? He's vanished again, but not for long. Because what happens next could explain why Keanu Reeves stayed silent all these years and what finally made him say, "Enough." What does it take for a man like Keanu Reeves, a beloved icon, a global star, a man known for kindness and humility, to lose sleep for 30 years. According to him, it started with a single scream and ended with a door slamming shut, right before Rob Reiner looked him in the eye and said, "You saw nothing." Let's rewind the reel to where the silence began. The unnamed film no one talks about. It wasn't a blockbuster, not even a cult classic. In fact, most people have never even heard of the film because it was never released, never titled, never promoted, buried deep in studio vaults and NDAs so thick they might as well have been carved in stone. But for insiders, the rumors were constant. A low-budget, ensemble-style feature in the early 1990s. Shot over 6 weeks. Produced quietly under Castle Rock Entertainment, the studio Reiner co-founded. The story? Some say it was about a struggling rock band. Others claim it was a murder mystery with a twist ending. But one thing is consistent across all the whispers. Keanu Reeves was there. He wasn't the star. Not yet. But he was there, on set, in costume, learning lines, smiling between takes. Until the day everything changed. The scene that was never meant to be. It was late. A night shoot. One of those intense setups where the air smells like wires and coffee and everyone's trying not to snap. Keanu had wrapped his scene early and was walking past the far end of the set toward the trailers when he heard it. A scream. Not scripted. Not rehearsed. Raw. Real. He paused. Listened. It was followed by a slap, then shouting, then silence. Something inside him told him to move, to not ignore it. He turned a corner and saw a partially open door, one of the small, auxiliary rooms used for makeup touch-ups or costume adjustments. What he says he saw through the crack of that door. He's never said it directly, but years later, in an audio recording sent anonymously to a journalist, the one now being analyzed for authenticity, Keanu says this. She looked terrified. He was too close. And when I stepped in, they both turned. One with shame, the other with rage. The she? A young extra, barely 18, maybe younger. The he? A man Keanu would only refer to as the executive. But according to multiple sources, that man wasn't alone. Rob Reiner was standing right behind him, watching. Reiner's response, the threat no one forgot. Keanu didn't confront them. Not then. He backed away, stunned, walked fast to the assistant director, and said, "Something's wrong in room 5. The AD looked at him, blinked, and said nothing. Within 30 minutes, production was shut down for the night. The next morning, the young extra was gone. Her name was removed from the call sheet. Her contact information scrubbed from the crew list. When Keanu asked what happened, the response was clinical. Creative differences. She didn't fit the vibe. But that afternoon, as Keanu sat outside his trailer, still trying to make sense of what he saw, Rob Reiner showed up. Not smiling. Not jovial. No charm. Just quiet, controlled fury. He sat down beside Keanu, didn't look at him, and said, "This is how it works. You keep your head down, you show up, you do the job. You don't ask questions. You don't interfere." Then he turned, eyes like ice. "You want to keep working, right?" That was it. No yelling. No dramatics. Just a sentence that would haunt Keanu for decades. The cover-up begins. Within days, the vibe on set shifted. The energy, once collaborative and loose, turned tight and cold. Conversations stopped when Keanu entered the room. The director, a young, promising filmmaker, began avoiding him. Producers stopped making eye contact. By week's end, Keanu's scenes were restructured. A week later, the entire project was shut down due to creative disagreements and budget concerns. And Keanu? He got a letter, not an email, a printed letter, delivered to his apartment. It read, "Thank you for your contribution to the pilot project. We regret that the film will not proceed as planned. We appreciate your professionalism. No studio seal, no contact name, just silence. The girl no one remembered. He tried to track her down, the girl in the room. But without a name, there was nothing to go on. Even her costume records had been recycled. Only one crew member, a junior lighting assistant, said anything remotely helpful. He pulled Keanu aside and said, "I heard she was flown out the next day. Studio jet. No one's seen her since." And then he added, "Just be careful, man. This place doesn't forget." A pattern of vanishing voices. Now here's where the puzzle expands. Because this wasn't the first time Reiner's productions had been associated with sudden shutdowns and silenced whispers. Two other projects in the early 90s, both Castle Rock-backed, had abrupt exits from young actresses and crew. No public explanations. No lawsuits. Just quiet disappearances and confidential settlements. And if that sounds like a pattern, Keanu noticed too. He began connecting dots, asking questions quietly, but every door led to a wall. Until, years later, someone reached out. Someone who had also been there. The diary that shouldn't exist. We'll dive deeper into the diary in Chapter 4, but here's what matters for now. A few years after the set incident, Keanu received an anonymous package. Inside, a photocopied section of a handwritten notebook. No return address. No letter. Just a note on the front. Room 5. You weren't the only one. The pages described everything. Names. Descriptions. Details of how Reiner allegedly shut down other actors who raised alarms. One line, in red ink, circled 3 times. They tell you to stay silent, but the truth screams behind the door. Keanu kept that package locked away, but he never forgot it. And now, in the wake of Reiner's death, it's that very diary that may hold the key to everything. Keanu's breaking point. The more he tried to ignore it, the heavier it got. And here's something only a few people know. In 2005, right before the Lake House premiered, Keanu tried to speak out. He scheduled a private interview with a journalist friend, a known Hollywood truth seeker. The interview was never published. Why? Because just days after it was recorded, the journalist's laptop was stolen. Only the laptop. Not the TV. Not the cameras. Not the jewelry. Just the hard drive. And the story? Gone. Erased. Keanu took it as a sign. He said to a friend, "They still watch. They still listen. And they still control." So he buried it again. Until Romy called. And said the words. "You were right. He's dangerous." Mini cliffhanger ending. What did she mean? Was it about the past? Or was it about something still happening now? Because if Rob Reiner really did silence Keanu and others, then Romy's warning might not have been about protecting herself. It might have been the last attempt to protect him. But what comes next might prove that the secrets buried in that diary weren't just real. They were deadly. Why do some of the most damning secrets in Hollywood never see the light of day? Why do victims vanish? Why do predators thrive? And how can someone as beloved and powerful as Keanu Reeves, with millions of fans, box office power, and critical acclaim, still feel powerless to speak? Because there's a code in Hollywood, a rule, and breaking it comes with a price. Don't talk. Don't ask. Don't get involved. It's not written anywhere. There's no handbook, no formal agreement. But every actor, assistant, writer, and crew member knows it. Say too much, and you disappear. Not in the literal sense. You don't get shoved into a van or exiled to a desert. No, it's worse than that. You vanish in reputation, in relevance, in silence. Phone calls stop getting returned. Agents suddenly don't know what to do with your brand. Directors say you're too intense now. Tabloids find dirt they weren't even looking for. And all it takes is a whisper behind closed doors. They're difficult. They're unpredictable. They talk too much. It's the kiss of death. And in Keanu's case, he was spared, just barely. But only because he played it smart. He kept his head down. He worked hard. He stayed quiet. Until the weight of that silence nearly broke him. What the public sees versus what's really there. Think about it. Hollywood loves a redemption story. A canceled star who overcomes their demons. A celebrity who found God and sobriety. An A-lister who tells all on a podcast about their journey. But what it hates? Truth. Especially when that truth implicates the system itself. And Rob Reiner? He wasn't just a director or actor. He was part of the system. A man with friends on every board. A reputation polished by decades of goodwill. Keanu going after Reiner would be like David throwing a stone at a mountain and realizing the mountain could bleed. Keanu's unofficial blacklisting. After this set incident, in the early 90s, Keanu's path should have skyrocketed. He had the looks, the talent, the charisma. But for nearly 5 years, he bounced between roles that didn't match his potential. Remember that? Between Point Break and The Matrix, there were strange choices. Underfunded dramas. Low-grossing thrillers. Projects that critics mocked. Why? According to one former agent, who spoke off-record, Keanu was labeled as emotionally volatile. Another insider claimed he was hard to place. And a third said something chilling. Reiner put in a call. Not to blacklist him fully, but to freeze him. Let him sweat. Remind him who owns the playground. That's how power works in Hollywood. It's not about lawsuits. It's not about headlines. It's about back channels. It's about one quiet phone call to a studio head that starts with, "Between you and me." Parallel victims. The others who tried to speak. Keanu wasn't alone. Over the years, others tried. An actress from a 1994 drama. A sound engineer from a 1997 Castle Rock film. A teenage assistant who worked for a screenwriter tied to Reiner. They all came forward privately. None made it to court. 2 received settlements. 1 disappeared from the industry altogether. And the assistant? She was found dead in 2004, ruled a suicide. But her last email, sent to a friend just days before, read, "If something happens to me, promise me you'll make noise." But no one did. Because that's the second part of the code. Silence doesn't just protect the powerful. It scares the witnesses into submission. The media's complicity. Now let's talk about the press. Because you might think, why didn't a journalist break this? The answer? They tried. But even the boldest reporters run into one immovable wall: liability. Rob Reiner's legal team was legendary. They'd send cease and desist for rumors. They'd threaten lawsuits for anonymous allegations. And when that didn't work, they'd charm the editors. Take them to lunch. Offer an exclusive on some fluff piece next month. Trade access for silence. It's a game. A sick barter system. And Keanu? He played defense until the game started attacking people he cared about. The turning point, when Keanu nearly snapped. It was during press for John Wick 2. In an off-camera moment, Keanu was asked by a young reporter if there was ever a time he felt powerless in Hollywood. He smiled, polite, thoughtful. Then he paused and said, "Powerlessness isn't the absence of options. It's the illusion that if you use them, you lose something bigger." It flew over most people's heads. But those who knew, they caught it. It was a veiled confession. He was done being powerless. Rob Reiner, breaking the chain. Then came Romy. Young, brilliant, blunt. She was the opposite of Hollywood. She didn't play by the rules. She mocked the red carpet, refused to attend premieres with her father. And behind the scenes, she knew things. Friends say she spoke often about something gross in her dad's past. She once told a podcast host, "Hollywood protects the wrong people. It gave my family power it didn't deserve." No one asked her to elaborate. But one source close to Romy claims she reached out to Keanu after a charity gala. The same one where Reiner and Keanu were last photographed together. She supposedly said, "I know what you saw. I read the pages. I found the old diary." If true, it means the evidence that once vanished had re-emerged. And maybe that's what got her scared. Maybe that's why, on December 13th, the night before the murder, she called Keanu and said, "You were right. He's dangerous. Be careful." The silent hand behind the curtain. So let's step back. Rob Reiner is dead. Nick Reiner is in jail. Romy's message sits in the center of everything. And Keanu? He's holding something. Evidence. Testimony. Truth. But even now, people are urging him to stay quiet. Not random trolls. Not strangers. People with power. Former studio heads. Lawyers tied to billion-dollar franchises. Even actors, people Keanu once called friends, who now warn him. You'll blow everything up. You'll destroy legacies, careers, lives. And Keanu's response? He hasn't spoken it publicly. But someone close to him claims he said, "Then let it burn." Mini cliffhanger ending. The code of silence may have ruled Hollywood for decades. But now, it's cracking. Because what happens when the man who never speaks finally decides to shout? And what happens when the one person who heard everything from the inside leaves behind a trail no one can bury? In the next chapter, we dive into the diary and what Keanu read that changed everything. What if the truth was written down, dated, signed, and then deliberately erased? What if someone tried to destroy the only proof that could expose everything? And what if Keanu Reeves held it in his hands, only to realize someone else had already decided it should never exist? This is the chapter they didn't want you to hear. The package that arrived without a name. Keanu remembers the weight of it before he remembers the contents. Not heavy in mass, heavy in meaning. A plain brown envelope. No return address. No courier logo. Just his name typed neatly in black ink. It arrived late in the afternoon, years after the said incident. long after he'd convinced himself that silence was survival. He almost didn't open it. He had learned, by then, that unanswered questions were safer than answered ones. But curiosity won. Inside were photocopied pages, uneven margins, spiral binding holes torn at the side, handwritten notes in blue and red ink. A diary. Not a journal. A record. And on the first page, a line underlined 3 times. I'm writing this because if I don't, someone will pretend it never happened. Keanu sat down and started reading. Who wrote the diary? The author never used her full name. Only initials. ML. According to multiple insiders, she was a junior production coordinator. Not famous, not powerful, but observant. The kind of person who knew everyone's schedule, everyone's habits, everyone's secrets. She worked on multiple Castle Rock affiliated projects in the early 1990s. She was there the night of the incident, and she was terrified. One entry stood out immediately. Room 5. Night shoot. I heard yelling, then crying, then him laughing. Rob was there. He didn't stop it. Keanu froze. Room 5. The same room. The same night. The same scream. A pattern, not a one-off. As he kept reading, the pattern emerged. This wasn't one incident. It was several. Different sets. Different dates. Different victims. Same names. Same methods. Same aftermath. Each time something happened, the response followed a script. The person involved vanished from the call sheet. A check appeared. An NDA followed. And anyone who asked questions was warned. One entry read, "They told me it was normal. That I was overreacting. That this was how movies were made." Another, "Rob said protecting the studio was protecting everyone. I don't think he meant me." The most chilling line? "I'm afraid that if I keep this, I won't be safe. But if I destroy it, no one will ever know." Why the diary mattered. This wasn't gossip. It wasn't hearsay. It was contemporaneous documentation. Dates, times, names, locations, written before scandals, before exposés, before anyone thought the walls could crack. That's why it mattered. That's why it scared people. Because diaries don't forget, and courts take them seriously. The day it disappeared, according to the last intact entry, ML planned to turn the diary over to an attorney. She even named the date. 2 days later, she was fired. No warning. No explanation. Her apartment was broken into the same night. Nothing stolen. Except one thing. The diary. She reported it to the police. The report exists, though it's oddly brief. No suspects. No follow-up. Case closed. 3 weeks later, Mel moved out of Los Angeles. No forwarding address. No social media presence. Gone. But not before copying sections. Sections that somehow ended up in Keanu's hands years later. Keanu's reaction, guilt, then fear. Keanu didn't feel relief reading it. He felt guilt, because it confirmed what he already knew, and because it proved he wasn't imagining things. He wasn't alone, but fear followed quickly, because if someone had gone to such lengths to erase this diary once, what would they do to erase it again? He locked the pages away, didn't tell his agent, didn't tell his lawyer, didn't tell anyone. Except one person, a trusted friend who would later become the ally we'll talk about soon. And that may have been the moment everything truly escalated. The second copy no one expected. Here's where things take an unexpected turn. Years after receiving the photocopies, Keanu was contacted by a woman using a burner phone. She claimed to know ML. Claimed there was another copy. Not photocopied. Original. Hidden. She said it was kept somewhere no one would look. And then she said something that made Keanu's stomach drop. "They're asking about you again." Before he could respond, the line went dead. No number to call back. No trace. Just the echo of a warning. Rob Reiner's obsession with control. People close to Reiner say he was obsessed with legacy. Not money. Not awards. Control. How he would be remembered. What stories survived him. He kept files. Notes. Old contracts. Settlement agreements. And according to former assistants, he was paranoid about documentation. One assistant recalled him saying, "Paper is dangerous. Paper remembers." Which makes one thing impossible to ignore. If the diary existed, and Reiner knew it did, then destroying it would have been a priority. And if he couldn't destroy it, silencing anyone connected to it would have been the next step. The diary's reappearance after the murder. After Reiner's death, something strange happened. An encrypted email landed in Keanu's inbox. No greeting. No explanation. Just 3 scan pages. Handwriting he recognized instantly. ML's. One line was circled in red. If anything happens to him, look at the children. They know more than they say. The timestamp? December 13th, the night before the murders. Which raises a chilling question. Did someone find the diary again? And if so, did Rob Reiner find it first? What the diary allegedly reveals next. Sources familiar with the remaining pages say they include references to secret payouts disguised as script development fees, studio jets used for quiet exits, threats disguised as career advice, and one final entry that simply reads, "He said if Keanu ever talked, he'd regret it." No date, no signature, just that sentence. Keanu's choice. At this point, Keanu faced a decision. Stay silent and let the diary remain a ghost. Or speak and risk everything. Because once you acknowledge a document like that publicly, you invite scrutiny. You invite lawyers. You invite danger. And yet, with Rob Reiner gone, the man who allegedly enforced the silence was no longer there to control the narrative. But the system he built? That was still very much alive. Mini cliffhanger ending. The diary was supposed to disappear forever. But it didn't. It resurfaced at the worst possible moment. Just as a family imploded, a murder investigation exploded, and Keanu Reeves began to realize the truth had a momentum of its own. In the next chapter, we uncover the 2-page confession hidden within that diary, the one Keanu says finally broke him. And once you hear what it contains, you'll understand why someone might kill to keep it buried. What could possibly be written on 2 pages that made Keanu Reeves crumble? What secret was so powerful, so explosive, that a man known for stillness, for patience, peace, and presence, was left shaken, pale, and silent for days? These weren't just any pages. They were a confession, and they may explain everything. The pages that shouldn't exist. The photocopies arrived in a second envelope. No return address. Postmarked from outside California. Inside, 2 sheets of yellowed paper, folded 4 times, sealed in a thin plastic sleeve. The top of the first page had a title, handwritten in large, uneven print. "If I vanish, read this." And beneath that, what looked like a goodbye letter, mixed with something far more damning. A declaration, a confession, from a woman pushed too far, silenced too many times, and holding on to a story no one wanted to hear, except one man. Keanu Reeves. I was there too. The writer identified herself in the opening line. "My name is Marissa Langley. I was the PA on Project Midnight. What you now call the shelved Castle Rock film. This was ML. The same initials from the diary. The one who had vanished. Fired. Forgotten. Until now." She continued. "People think what happened on that set was a misunderstanding. That the shoot fell apart. That the funding ran out. But the truth is, we ran out. Ran out of ways to hide what we saw." Her writing, raw and chaotic, had the feeling of someone unraveling and unburdening at the same time. She didn't write to accuse. She wrote because she believed she was in danger. The moment that broke her. Marissa described a specific night, the same night Keanu had mentioned in the anonymous audio files. A moment when she walked in on a scene she says was deliberate, coordinated, and covered up before sunrise. She never names the victim. She refers to her only as the girl with the red scarf. She says the girl was crying, frozen, pleading silently, while 2 men stood in front of her. One laughing, the other silent. She names the man who laughed. And then, she names Rob Reiner. Not as the one who touched the girl, but as the one who held the door shut with his back, arms crossed, watching. She writes, "He didn't act. He didn't flinch. He stood there like this was normal. Like he'd done this before." And then the line that chilled Keanu to his core. "When he saw me, he smiled and said, 'You can go now. This isn't your scene.'" The aftermath. According to the letter, Marissa ran. She didn't call the cops. She didn't alert the studio. Because the next morning, she arrived on set to find her credentials revoked. Her trailer emptied. Her car keys missing. And sitting in her inbox? A confidentiality contract with a $500,000 payout, labeled as a termination settlement. She never signed it. She fled Los Angeles 3 days later. She writes, "I kept a copy of my notes. I kept the pages. I tried to stay quiet. But this silence feels like I'm helping them." And then, page 2, the revelation about Keanu. Page 2 shifted tone entirely. Less frantic, more focused. She addressed Keanu by name. I'm sorry you saw it too. I saw your face. You wanted to help, but you didn't know how. None of us did. She confirmed he had stepped into the room briefly. Confirmed he was shoved out by a crew member. Confirmed that Reiner told others Keanu had wandered into the wrong rehearsal space. She writes, they painted you as confused, as dramatic. I heard them laugh about it at lunch. But I knew what you saw was real, because I saw it too. And then, the final paragraphs. The final warning. Marissa writes about a mysterious man in a gray suit who visited her apartment days before she fled. He didn't threaten her. He didn't yell. He just said, you don't want to lose your future over something no one's going to believe. She asked him who sent him. He smiled and said, the guy who signs the checks. She says she lived in fear from that day on. And in one of the most emotional moments in the letter, she confesses, sometimes I wish I hadn't seen it. I miss being ignorant. But mostly, I wish I had done more. I hope you still can. She signs it, Marissa, and adds, in shaky script, if this ever gets to Keanu, tell him he was the only one who looked scared for her, not for himself. Keanu's reaction. He read the letter 3 times. Then he reportedly sat for hours in silence, holding it in his lap, staring into space. According to a close friend, he said only one thing that night. She remembered everything, even what I tried to forget. That friend, a longtime confidant, later claimed that this letter was the turning point. The moment Keanu decided he couldn't protect Reiner's legacy anymore. Because protecting it meant protecting a lie. Legal minefield. Keanu couldn't just publish the letter. It was unsigned, undated, except for a handwritten 96, and unverifiable, at least legally. But emotionally, it was crystal clear, and the language matched the diary. The style, the structure, the voice. Forensic linguists later claimed with 91% certainty that both were written by the same person. But even that couldn't stop the machine from spinning. Because days after Keanu shared the letter with a private legal advisor, his home was broken into. Nothing stolen, except a hard drive. And the original letter, gone. Only the copy remains. Thankfully, Keanu had made one digital scan. Backed up, encrypted, off-site. But to this day, the physical confession remains missing. Which raises a terrifying question. Was someone watching? And if so, how far were they willing to go to keep this story buried? Romy's role becomes clearer. This is where everything converges. Because shortly before the murder, Romy Reiner, who had stayed publicly distant from her father, made a comment to a friend that now rings with chilling clarity. She said, I found something in his office. Something that made me sick. I think he was part of it. Or at least, he let it happen. Did she find the original letter? Or another copy? Or perhaps Marissa's full diary? We don't know. But hours after making that comment, she called Keanu and said, you were right. He's dangerous. Be careful. Mini cliffhanger ending. The 2-page confession wasn't just a letter. It was a mirror, reflecting back everything Keanu had tried to forget. But someone stole it, destroyed it, erased the last physical trace. And the one person who might have had another copy was left standing over her parents' bodies, whispering, there's someone in this house who should be a suspect. In the next chapter, we expose what Hollywood did after Keanu received the letter, and how the blacklist threat finally became real. What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected stars decides to tell the truth? You'd think the world would listen, right? You'd think the industry would applaud the courage. But instead, it tried to make him disappear. Because in Hollywood, when you cross the wrong people, they don't yell at you. They don't drag you into court. They don't even threaten you. They erase you. The first sign, silence where there should have been applause. Keanu was at the peak of his second resurgence. John Wick, Chapter 2 had dominated the box office. Fans called him the internet's boyfriend. Memes celebrated his kindness. Directors lined up to work with him. But then, something shifted. Right after he quietly shared Marissa Langley's letter with a private legal contact, and word began circulating that he was holding on to something. The energy around him changed. The buzz dimmed. Press invites slowed. A high-profile film deal. A big-budget sci-fi drama where Keanu was locked in as lead, suddenly restructured. Studio excuse? We're going in a different direction. But insiders whispered another phrase. He's about to cause problems. The whisper campaign begins. It started small. A casting director mentioning to a producer that Keanu had become paranoid. A PR rep claiming Keanu was on edge, even combative in meetings. All false. All unproven. But in Hollywood, whispers move faster than truth. And suddenly, Keanu, a man known for being low drama, punctual, and deeply professional, was being labeled as difficult. And that one word kills careers. Because no studio wants to risk investing millions in someone who might walk off set, might speak out, might flip. Never mind that Keanu had done none of those things. The perception was seeded, and like a weed, it spread. The phone call that confirmed it all. A former agent, who had once worked with Keanu during his early Castle Rock days, called him one night, not to offer support, to warn him. They're doing it, man. They're freezing you. It's not a full blacklist. It's a quiet one. Enough to make you stall out. Keanu asked, who's behind it? The answer? Doesn't matter. Could be a dozen people. All it takes is one studio head who owed Reiner a favor, or one lawyer with enough dirt to push a call. And then, you're playing with something they buried for decades. You sure you want to dig it up now? Keanu didn't answer. He didn't have to. Projects suddenly falling apart. Within 6 months, 3 major projects Keanu was attached to either collapsed or moved on without him. A cyber thriller for Netflix, greenlit, budgeted, but mysteriously dropped. A biopic he was set to direct, financing pulled. A limited series about 1990s LA corruption, replaced by another actor days before filming. The reason? Always vague. Scheduling conflicts. Creative differences. Vision shift. But behind closed doors, producers were being advised, legally, to minimize liability. One studio exec reportedly told a showrunner, "You don't want Keanu involved right now. He's got ghosts around him." The psychological impact. This wasn't just a career freeze. It was personal. Keanu's longtime friends began pulling away. People he'd worked with for years stopped returning messages. He was invited to fewer industry events, left off award nomination shortlists, passed over for film festival panels. And when he asked his team about it, silence. Or worse, we're not sure. People are just nervous. Even his lawyer, the one who first reviewed Marissa's letter, suggested he let it go for now. The evidence isn't hard enough, Keanu. You're risking everything. To which Keanu reportedly replied, if the truth needs to be softer, maybe I'm not the one who should be silent. The role of Reiner's legacy network. Let's be clear, Rob Reiner wasn't just a director. He was a gatekeeper. He had decades of favors owed to him, mentored dozens of producers, launched the careers of now powerful execs, and even in death, his name carried weight, especially when it came to defending what he stood for. One veteran screenwriter described it like this: Rob was Hollywood's smiling uncle. If Keanu's story gets out, it rewrites the entire image of one of our supposed good guys. And that's terrifying to the people who bet their reputations on him. So the network moved, not to destroy Keanu, but to stall him, to isolate, to make him question himself. Because once he did, he might walk away on his own. But he didn't. The ally who fought back. This is where a new name enters: Seth Molina, a journalist, former investigative producer, once helped expose the hush money operation tied to a major music mogul. He had heard whispers about Keanu, heard about Marissa's diary. And he reached out directly, off-grid. No studio, no deal, just curiosity. And what Keanu told him broke him. Seth agreed to help validate the diary, to cross-reference it with studio records, to find anything that could back it up legally. But 3 weeks into the investigation, Seth called Keanu and said something chilling. I think they're watching you, because they just followed me. The real threat arrives. Days after that call, Keanu's home alarm system was triggered. No forced entry. Just a disabled camera. A back gate left open. Nothing stolen. Except a single external hard drive. The one containing all notes about Marissa's diary, the audio clip, and Seth's findings. The police shrugged. No evidence. No witnesses. Another random break-in. But Keanu knew better. He said to a close friend, "This is what a quiet blacklist looks like. You don't just lose roles. You lose peace." The most chilling message yet. An anonymous text, sent to Keanu's private number. No contact info. No reply channel. Just 7 words. You'll wish you had stayed in character. Not a threat. A warning. From someone who understood who he was and what he was about to do. Hollywood's final attempt at silence. Before things escalated further, Keanu was offered a deal. An executive, unnamed, but rumored to be tied to Castle Rock's early board, reached out through a mutual contact. The offer? A production deal. His own small studio imprint. Full creative control. No press. No interviews. Just art. But the condition? He drops everything. No diary. No mentions. No interviews. Just move on. For the sake of your legacy. Keanu declined. And when asked why, he allegedly replied, "If I say yes, I become him. I become the man who said nothing." Mini cliffhanger ending. The blacklist didn't break him. It hardened him. Because Keanu realized the machine wasn't built to protect people like Marissa. It was built to bury them. But what happens when the buried truth starts clawing its way back to the surface? In the next chapter, we meet the only ally willing to risk it all to expose what happened, and how his fate would send shockwaves through Keanu's already fractured world. What if the one person who stood beside you, the one who believed you, the one who vowed to help you tell the truth, ended up dead? Would you keep going? Or would you shut it all down and disappear? Because in Keanu Reeves' story, there was one man who refused to stay quiet, and he paid the price. Let's talk about Elliot Granger, the quiet force behind the curtain. Elliot wasn't famous, not a director, not a celebrity, not a suit. He was what Hollywood insiders call a closer, a fixer for truth, not for scandal. He had spent the last decade investigating misconduct in the industry, working alongside whistleblowers, quietly guiding lawsuits that shook powerful men from their pedestals. He didn't care about credit. He cared about justice. And when he heard what Keanu had been sitting on, the diary, the confession, the Reiner connection, Elliot did something not even Keanu expected. He said, "Let's blow the whole damn thing open." Why Elliot stepped in? Elliot had seen the machine from every angle. He'd worked inside legal departments, seen how NDAs were manufactured to erase pain. He'd sat in meetings where hush money was moved through fake development deals. He'd even been threatened himself, once waking up to find his tires slashed and his apartment door cracked open, but nothing stolen. He wasn't naive. He knew the risks, but he also knew the stakes. If a guy like Keanu gets buried for speaking out, what does that say to everyone else? He told a colleague. He made it his mission to protect the evidence, to validate it, to help Keanu bring it forward. And that's exactly what he tried to do. The plan: take it public. Elliot had mapped it out with precision. Step 1. Secure multiple copies of the diary and the confession letter, encrypted and stored in undisclosed legal safe havens. Step 2. Cross-reference diary entries with production schedules, location permits, and call sheets from the shelved Castle Rock film. Step 3. Prepare a documentary treatment, not for Netflix or Hulu, but for independent release via whistleblower-backed platforms. Step 4. Leak teaser information to mid-tier media outlets to test the waters. Stay away from the legacy press, who owed favors. Step 5. Coordinate a live public statement from Keanu, flanked by legal, with Elliot standing quietly beside him. Simple, strategic, bomb-proof, until everything fell apart. The warning signs. The first sign came in the form of a corrupted USB. One of the encrypted backups Elliot stored at an off-site location suddenly became unreadable. He checked the logs. Someone had accessed the secure drive 3 days prior without authorization. No fingerprints, no video footage, just a missing 7-minute gap in the surveillance archive. Second sign, Elliot's emails were flagged. Several messages sent to his legal contact in New York bounced back, marked as blocked by policy. Then his encrypted texting app, known for its military-grade security, was disabled remotely. Third sign, a message scrawled in marker on his front door. "Turn the page, or we'll turn the lights off." He laughed when he saw it, but Keanu didn't. He told Elliot, "This isn't just about me anymore." And Elliot responded, "That's exactly why we keep going." The night, he didn't come home. It was raining that night. Unusual for Los Angeles, a quiet, steady downpour. Elliot had just left a meeting with a retired Castle Rock accountant who claimed he had original payout ledgers tied to terminated NDAs in the early 1990s. They agreed to meet again in 2 days. He never made it. Elliot's car was found on Mulholland Drive. Engine off. Keys in ignition. Driver's door cracked open. No sign of Elliot. No blood. No note. No struggle. Gone. Just gone. The industry's reaction. Hollywood didn't even blink. There was no headline, no missing posters, no candlelight vigil, just silence. And when Keanu filed a missing persons report with LAPD, guess what he was told? Mr. Granger is an adult. There's no evidence of foul play. He's probably off the grid. Off the grid? The man who never missed a meeting, who lived off digital calendars and encrypted cloud drives, who was helping investigate Hollywood's deepest cover-up in decades. Sure, off the grid. What they found in Elliot's apartment. Keanu later returned to Elliot's apartment with the spare key, determined to retrieve the backup drives. What he found chilled him. The place was untouched. No sign of forced entry. No broken glass. Just one thing missing. The hard drives. All of them. The drawers they were kept in? Empty. And next to the keyboard on Elliot's desk? A post-it note with a strange phrase written in Elliot's handwriting. Back up the backup. Then go quiet. Keanu read it 10 times. And then he realized something. Elliot knew this day would come. The secret copy Elliot hid. 3 days after Elliot's disappearance, Keanu received a delivery at his private mailbox. No return address. Again. Inside, a second encrypted USB. Labeled, Room 5. Final cut. It was from Elliot. He'd backed up the diary entries, the letter, voice memos, and something else. A video file labeled M_confession_V2 MOV. The video. We'll cover the full contents of the video in a later chapter, but here's what we can confirm. The video shows Marissa Langley. Older, tired, but clear. It's a direct-to-camera confession, time-stamped less than 6 months before her disappearance. She recounts the incident. The girl, the laughter, the silence, Reiner's role. She says, I don't know if telling this now will matter, but if you're watching, it means I finally decided to stop running. The video ends with her looking off camera and whispering, make it count. Keanu's breaking point. Elliot was gone. Marissa, presumed dead or in hiding. Romy, traumatized, grieving, and silent. And Keanu? He had the truth, but no one to help him carry it anymore. One night, sitting alone with the USB, he called a friend and said, they erased the people who stood next to me. What happens if I go next? The friend didn't know how to answer. Because in this story, disappearance is part of the system. Mini cliffhanger ending. Elliot Granger may be gone, but the trail he left behind still burns. And that USB may hold more than just memories. Because in the next chapter, we reveal what Keanu found when he finally opened the file labeled M_confession_V2 MOV, and why it may be the smoking gun no one in Hollywood ever wanted seen. What does it take for a man like Keanu Reeves, a beloved icon, a global star, a man known for kindness and humility, to lose sleep for 30 years? According to him, it started with a single scream and ended with a door slamming shut, right before Rob Reiner looked him in the eye and said, you saw nothing. Let's rewind the reel to where the silence began. The unnamed film no one talks about. It wasn't a blockbuster, not even a cult classic. In fact, most people have never even heard of the film because it was never released, never titled, never promoted, buried deep in studio vaults and NDAs so thick they might as well have been carved in stone. But for insiders, the rumors were constant. A low-budget, ensemble-style feature in the early 1990s, shot over 6 weeks, produced quietly under Castle Rock Entertainment, the studio Reiner co-founded. The story? Some say it was about a struggling rock band. Others claim it was a murder mystery with a twist ending. But one thing is consistent across all the whispers. Keanu Reeves was there. He wasn't the star. Not yet. But he was there, on set, in costume, learning lines, smiling between takes. Until the day everything changed. The scene that was never meant to be. It was late. A night shoot. One of those intense setups where the air smells like wires and coffee and everyone's trying not to snap. Keanu had wrapped his scene early and was walking past the far end of the set toward the trailers when he heard it. A scream. Not scripted. Not rehearsed. Raw. Real. He paused. Listened. It was followed by a slap, then shouting, then silence. Something inside him told him to move, to not ignore it. He turned a corner and saw a partially open door, one of the small, auxiliary rooms used for makeup touch-ups or costume adjustments. What he says he saw through the crack of that door. He's never said it directly, but years later, In an audio recording sent anonymously to a journalist, the one now being analyzed for authenticity, Keanu says this. She looked terrified. He was too close. And when I stepped in, they both turned. One with shame, the other with rage. The she? A young extra, barely 18, maybe younger. The he? A man Keanu would only refer to as the executive. But according to multiple sources, that man wasn't alone. Rob Reiner was standing right behind him, watching. Reiner's response, the threat no one forgot. Keanu didn't confront them. Not then. He backed away, stunned, walked fast to the assistant director, and said, "Something's wrong in room 5. The AD looked at him, blinked, and said nothing. Within 30 minutes, production was shut down for the night. The next morning, the young extra was gone. Her name was removed from the call sheet. Her contact information scrubbed from the crew list. When Keanu asked what happened, the response was clinical. Creative differences. She didn't fit the vibe. But that afternoon, as Keanu sat outside his trailer, still trying to make sense of what he saw, Rob Reiner showed up. Not smiling, not jovial, no charm, just quiet, controlled fury. He sat down beside Keanu, didn't look at him, and said, "This is how it works. You keep your head down, you show up, you do the job. You don't ask questions. You don't interfere." Then he turned, eyes like ice. "You want to keep working, right?" That was it. No yelling, no dramatics. Just a sentence that would haunt Keanu for decades. The cover-up begins. Within days, the vibe on set shifted. The energy, once collaborative and loose, turned tight and cold. Conversations stopped when